can continue to work on that as a way to document who's here today. But let me just stand in the middle. We're here because of her. And I know that many of you almost kind of can't believe that she's not here. It seems like she would come walking through the door late, like I do often, because we had so many different things that we wanted to do in the community, in our churches, in our organizations on a beautiful day like this. We're here to honor the memory and the legacy, the living legacy of Victoria Casey McDonald. So one of the things that I said earlier is I want to make sure that we have everyone sign in who's here today, even our little ones, so that we can mark this wonderful day that we're having at the Jackson County Public Library in Silver. And this also marks the time that we celebrate African American History Month. And as we all know, Black history is American history. And that's one of the things that Victoria always stressed in the work that she did. It's this wide view of what we're doing here, but also to not forget the people and the places and the stories of where we stand in the hills of the Appalachian Mountains. And for us to know that there has always been, as we have become a nation, an African American presence here. We've been here for generations. My name is Marie Cochran. Most of you know me. I am a former faculty at Western Carolina University in the School of Art and Design, and was also very much involved in many organizations around the community. I am the founder of the Appalachian Artists Project, and I'll tell you more about that later. And I bring you greetings from Toccoa, Georgia. So we're going to begin by honoring this day, and we will begin with a pledge of allegiance to the flag. And I will have our wonderful veteran here, Mr. Leroy, lead us in that pledge. Would you please stand?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Mr. Leroy, I forgot your last name. Jackson. Mr. Leroy Jackson. All right. Next up, we are here in this beautiful historic facility. Some of you may never have been here before. Yes, it was a courthouse. And yes, it is now a wonderful community space that is the public library for this county. And I'm going to have Ben give us our welcome.
Thanks, Marie. I'd like to welcome everyone and thank everyone for coming. I do have one little announcement today, so if you want to leave here, I think we'll be done around 4. At 5:15 at the Macon County Library, they're going to have a timeline, a brief history of African American music, and it'll start at 5:15. So if anyone wants to go to the Franklin Library after this. Like I said, thank everyone for coming. We'd like to thank our partners, Appalachian Art Project and Jackson County Arts Council. And I think everyone should really thank Marie Cochran, who did all the work to make this happen. And so now I think we have a few words from our other partner, the Arts Council. So I'd like to introduce my mother, Gayle Woody.
Thank you, Benjamin. On behalf of the Jackson County Arts Council, I want to welcome you as well. And many of you know that Victoria was past president of the Jackson County Arts Council. She had a real impact on the Arts Council at a real crucial time when after Ray Mincy, who had led the Arts Council for a number of years, had passed away, and Victoria stepped up and carried on that legacy because of her real commitment to the arts, and that was a really wonderful thing. So as current president of the Jackson County Arts Council, we want to honor her legacy with the Arts Council, and also thank all of you for coming and participating with us. We do have refreshments downstairs that we've helped to provide, along with the Catch the Spirit of Appalachia. So we hope you'll partake of those refreshments when we go down there. And I do want to say a few things about Victoria. I knew her for over 30 years, moving here into Jackson County. She was such a vital part of so many aspects of our county. And I would run into her in different ways throughout the years. The first time I ever met her was at a basketball game with the rec department when her son was playing against our son Benjamin. And
Oh, we were on the same team.
oh, you were on the same team. I'm sorry. That's right. Thank you for reminding me. And everyone that knows Victoria knew that she was a fierce competitor. And she fiercely loved her children. And I love that about her, because when she would watch Tina play or watch Creighton play, she was all in with that game. And then years later, she was coaching middle school, and my husband, Gayle Woody, was coaching middle school as well for Scotts Creek, and she's coached for Smoky Mountain Elementary. And they were coaching against each other, and again, her fierce competitiveness was such a hallmark of her personality. And she loved those kids, and she wanted them all to be their very best. One of the questions that Marie asked us to think about was, what's your favorite story about Victoria? I taught art at Smoky Mountain High School for several years, and I had a grant that I invited Victoria to come, and she brought paintings that she had done. They were beautiful in the style of what we would call folk art. They were very much narrative paintings that reflected her culture, her history, her family, and just growing up in the mountains, and some of the history of Black people, African American people growing up in the mountains, and how important that was. Well, the interesting thing, when she came to the classroom, the students had no idea that she was such an accomplished artist. They knew her as a teacher from Smoky Mountain Elementary. They knew her as a coach. They knew her as a person who would tell them to straighten up in that hallway and pull their pants up and act like a person. They knew her as a coach, but they didn't realize that she had that artistic talent or aspect. And I have to say that the students were just spellbound by the stories that her artwork told. And we followed up. She encouraged them to think of a story from their past. And we followed up with them painting pictures that would be reflections of their cultural heritage as well. So that's my favorite story. It just kind of encompassed who Victoria was. And she did substitute for me sometimes, and the students were always thrilled to see her because she knew that she cared about it. But they also knew she was no nonsense. And you know, students really don't like chaos. They might create chaos, but they don't want to be in chaos. And she kept a tight rein on behavior, which was a real positive thing. One of the things that was so extraordinary about Victoria is she loved kids, but she did command their respect. She knew that they cared about her, and she wanted every child to reach their full potential. She would stop children in the hallway. I've seen this many times. And she would say, your mama wouldn't like you doing that. Or I know your grandma, she wouldn't want you behaving that way. She held them accountable because family was so important to her, and she wanted family to be important to those students as well. And then the last question Marie asked was, what do you believe is her legacy and why? Victoria was so proud of her racial heritage, and she was willing to share her story, which had some very difficult times and very wonderful times as well. But she was willing to share her story so that others could share in the rich and varied culture of her people. So it's a wonderful opportunity for us to honor Victoria here today. Thank you.
So you can relax and respond and say, and I remember that. This is a welcoming place, and I'm really glad that Gayle got a chance to share those memories, because we will have an actual group of people to join us. Gayle needed to leave. She had a prior engagement, and I thought that it was probably best for her to be able to speak, not only as a colleague, but also as president of the Jackson County Arts Council. And a correction, I did not do all of this by myself. My partner in crime is Victoria's daughter, Faustine Wilson, who is here with us today. So give her a round of applause. Of the only African-American owned business in downtown Silva, which is Survival Pride. And for many of you who will mention the fact that, as we said, there's so many different aspects to Victoria's life, including the fact that she's a published author. And we actually have copies of her book available for sale, and also items from the Appalachian Artist Project. So there'll be all kinds of ways that you can participate in this wonderful event. Next up, it was very important for us to bring Victoria here with you today. And we will do that in her voice, in her own words. We're honored to have a wonderful compilation of stories that have been kept called Stories of Mountain Folk. She was a partner not only in that, but in the publishing of her books with Catch the Spirit of Appalachia, and I'm very glad to have Amy and Dorel Ammons here today with us. So we'll have that at this moment. And if you would like, close your eyes and remember seeing her, hearing her. And for those of you who don't know her, you'll be able to have a better sense of the woman and the person that she was.
Hello, Victoria. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, Amy. How are you doing?
I'm doing real good. Let's talk a little bit about your childhood. Tell us a little bit about where you were born and all those people who were around when you were a little girl.
I was born in a little place called Peter's Bluff. A lot of people don't know it's Peter's Bluff because we just call it, I live in Colowitz. Just off that bridge as you go to your left and down that road. And there you see, when you finally get to near the end of the road, you're going to find a cluster of houses. There's going to be one over here, one there, and then it was my Clifford and Francis lived there, his first wife, and J.C. and Uncle Henry lived there. My Uncle Charlie, my great Uncle Charlie, is that great uncle? Yeah, he was my great Uncle Charlie, and Hattie lived up there, and we lived in that little code too. That's when I say we, I say that's WSK's kids live there. And so I grew up there in a house that began as just as upstairs. My dad built downstairs as the family grew, which grew to be 10 children, but one died. Charlie, I guess she's about a year old when she died. And then, of course, it became 9 of us, and of course, there was my sister Loretta, who got stuck right in the middle, and she became a middle child. Instead of, I'm 2 years younger than she is, but Camille on the other end, no, not Camille, but Geraldine on the other spectrum was just a year older than she. And she felt she needed to be with the 4 big ones. But as the years went by, it became 5 little ones and the 4 big ones. And she tells me that Mother had instructed her to take care of the 5 big ones.
Well, that was nice. Now, I know you were a twin. Tell me about that.
Well, my twin brother was Victor. I'm Victoria, his name was Victor. And our name, was basically the same. Victor, Arbella, Casey, Victoria, Arbella, Casey. Now, they tell me when I was little, it'd be on a rug with, I guess, a blanket, I suppose, and then a big blanket, and it would be set and play with whatever toys it was. If Victor left, I'd cry, so they'd have to bring it back, so I wouldn't move.
Well, that was nice. That's good for twins to be like that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But, as we grew up, he was more closer to Lorinda than he was to me, but I was close to him. I was there to help him out when things got, too bad for him when he was sick. And Lorinda helped him out a lot, but he went up to Chicago and my brother died. It was the summertime, and I remember that it wasn't quite summer. School was about out, and I told him I got to go. Green got to take care of my brother, because my sister that was close, he was staying with, had to go to work. I could find a substitute, and I went on. And so I stayed there with him until he died. And then I remember the night before he died, actually, I held his hand and I told him, "It's all right. Go ahead. You need to go." The morning he was dead.
Welcome, Victoria, Casey, McDonald. We're almost on Christmas time, and when I think of you, I think of Christmas for some reason. I'm not sure why. But maybe you have a few Christmas stories for us today.
Well, I don't know. Christmas story. Well, when we were growing up, it was a big family of us, and I remember, I don't know how old we were, but we had dolls. We had a lot of dolls. Dolls we made, dolls that we found. There used to be what they call the college trash pile down the road. We found dolls and stuff. We'd bring them home. We'd dress them up. They'd be in school, and then at Christmas time we'd have a Christmas for the dolls. So we would also have a tree for the house upstairs, and when you go get a tree, we'd also get a small tree for the dolls downstairs. And we were very creative. We made toys. We got the Sears catalog. We figured out how to make some of the toys and stuff out of pasteboard and paper or whatever we had. And we'd get wrapping paper and wrap them up and put them under the tree. And Christmas morning come. After we got our Christmas, we'd go downstairs and the dolls would have Christmas. It was kind of cool. I remember that quite well. And we always had paper dolls that we played with. We had tons and tons of paper dolls. We play school with them. They go to school. And I remember you made a yearbook of that. I loved that yearbook. I got to. I was trying to keep it, but something that got lost between here and there. I don't know. I think Camille took it. I don't know what happened to it after that. We draw the pictures. We always were kind of artistic. We draw the pictures and make a yearbook, the whole thing, whole 9 yards. We have, of course, we have our favorite paper doll that we say would be the champion of the football team or the captain of the basketball team, things like that. That's the way we played.
Well,
Great times.
Sounds like just a fun Christmas, and so creative you were.
We were kind of creative. We had to be because, the parents can't give you everything that you think you want, but you find other things to do. You create your own fun. That's what we did. We had a playroom. That was a joy to have that playroom, because when people came down, when other kids came down, shall I say, that's what they loved, was our playroom. Oh, they got a playroom. We got a room that looked huge, but when you grow up, you realize it wasn't that huge, but it was big enough, and we had the stove in there also. It was like most of the time it was a coal stove, and you put coal in it. Sometimes it was a wood stove, and sometimes whatever it was. And upstairs, there was a vent that went upstairs to let the heat go upstairs, and we played in the playroom all the time. That Everybody had a spot of their own. And mine was the junkie spot, of course.
Well, I remember some of the Christmases myself when I was growing up. And a lot of times it was a sad time, because Santa Claus didn't show up like he was supposed to. And he got stopped along the way and didn't quite make it to our house. Did you ever have any times like that?
Well, I had times that Santa Claus didn't bring what I wanted him to bring. I remember, we had the big girl, there was 6 girls, and of course the 2 big ones always got a doll. And when we got our dolls, we didn't get the doll that we wanted. They had a Betsy doll, I think it was, and we got some doll, but we can't, and we never got everything we wanted, but Christmas was kind of joy. I remember one Christmas my dad, he cooked, and I have a little envelope that we wrote to Dad and said, thank you for doing Christmas dinner. And, because my mother cooked all the time, and Daddy was a cook. He cooked that Christmas dinner that time, so it was great.
Oh, then you were always well fed.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, we were always well fed. That was something, you look around at the people around you at school and stuff, and you realize that you don't have as much as they do. But in essence, I never remember going hungry. That was one thing I never remember doing. But I remember a lot of times our lights, the light bill would not be played, and we'd have lanterns nighttime to see. But I don't think I've never went to bed hungry, so that was pretty neat.
Music is a big part of Christmas. Well, I was at the Christmas play that my sister puts together every year, and I heard you sing Sweet Little Jesus Boy. And I just love to hear you sing that again.
Okay, I'll try. When I sing not just to be singing, but I sing from the heart, so let's try that. Sweet little Jesus boy, made to be born in a manger. Sweet little holy child, we didn't know who you were. Didn't know you'd come to save us, to take away our sin. Our eyes were blind and we couldn't see. We didn't know who you were. Long time ago when you were born in a manger low. Sweet, sweet little holy child, we did not know it was you. They treat you mean, Lord. They treat me mean too. But that's how it is down here, Lord. We didn't know it was you. But you done told us how. Now we are trying, Master, you done showed us how. Even when you were dying, seemed like, oh, we can't write. Look how we treated you. Please, Lord, forgive us. We did not know it was you. Long time ago when you were born.
time, even if you did not meet Victoria, I think that little sample gave you a sense of the person that she was and what she believed in and what was important to her. So now we're going to have real singers to sing to us and bless us with a selection. I bring to the stage, to the flow, Liberty Baptist Church Choir. Come on. Liberty Baptist Church in silver. And Reverend Charles Lee was going to be on our panel this afternoon. He was unable to join us, but he sends his greetings.
It's a privilege and a joy to be a part of this event. Because Victoria, especially when her church didn't have an event on Black History, she would come to our church. So if we didn't have it on the same time, the first thing she would do is she would stop by the kitchen what we eat. That just brings me to a story. The story was her mother and I were really close. My mother and her were really close. And they would come to the house, her and Creighton. And the only time in particular we were getting ready to eat. There was some drop biscuits and gravy. And Victoria was getting ready to leave. I said, hey, it was just about done, but it wasn't. Creighton said, sure smells good in here. They get a little closer to the door. Sure smells good in here. And then my little brother came by the plate and said, that looks better than it smells. And then mother asked, said, well, why don't y'all sit down and eat with us? And Victoria said, you do that next time. She hadn't planned it, but she wanted to do it again. But we're going to sing an old song because we used to like those songs to bring to the story. And this one is an old spirit. And it's got a lot of little mysteries in it. So we're going to try to sing it. All right. Won't it be grand? Won't it be grand? Won't it be grand? Won't it be grand? I'm going home to live with Jesus. Won't it be grand? Won't it be grand? Never been to heaven, but I've been told the streets of there are paved with gold. I'm going home to live with Jesus. Won't it be grand? Won't it be grand? Jordan River, deep and wide. I've got a home on the other side. I'm going home to live with
also tell you why I had distributed the copies of Western Woman magazine. If you look on page 12, there is a profile on Victoria. So that's your keepsake. Price of admission. Just showing up. And I thank you again, Liberty, for sharing that song with us. All right, well now we are going to begin our panel. And I have several people who are going to be participating, and I'll ask them to come up, pick the chair of their choice, because we're going to sit down and have a little conversation about our friend Victoria. And these are people who are from various aspects of her life. So Mary Sue Casey is here with us today. There's Stella Moore. Annette Clapsaddle. Gayle Woody already had a chance to speak at the very beginning, and like I said, she shared some wonderful stories. Joshua Wilkie. Is Joshua here today? All right, Joshua was unable to make it. All we need to shut that door. I don't know if that's... It seems like that may be an alarm or it's some screaming demons. And then Amy Ammons. All right. So we don't have our full house, but we're still going to have some people in the house, which means I'm going to be able to get a chance to sit a little bit too. So, as I said before, I think we're going to have a microphones in my and I'm thanking my friend Avram for documenting our proceedings today. Finally going to get a little sound, I guess. Maybe not, maybe so. Can you guys hear me all right? I don't even know what this is doing, and I'm not going to turn it on because it might start screaming at us. So, all right, okay. I guess I could begin with some information for you about how I know Victoria. I met Victoria 10 years ago when I came here as a faculty member at Western Carolina University. And she was one of those kind of people who kind of, commands the room in some ways. And sometimes she sneaks into a room. She would sneak into a room because she was only, yay high. How tall was your mom?
5 foot. She said about 1.5.
Don't clear. And as you can see, when we had the images going, there were various, it's almost like Oprah Winfrey from the 80s to the present. Various hairstyles, from afro to dreadlocks. And so my first memory was her coming into a meeting later than me, at Bridges of Jackson County, Bridging Jackson County Communities. And I said, who is this person? And she had a stern look on her face, and she was very serious. And she asked a lot of provocative questions like, why were we going to invite this group of people? Could we have this person? And really was engaged in a meaningful way. And I said, I need to get to know her. But somehow, before I got to know her, she left. And I found out later she was going to another meeting because she would go to 5 different meetings at the same time in one evening. From her church to a Democratic Women's, to an arts council, to something else. She served in so many ways. And I don't want us to forget that aspect of her too. Because even in this building, if you go and look at the bronze plaque, she is on that plaque. You look over and there she is. There she is. She was always moving. In that car, just riding along. Whatever car it was that she had. So when I finally got a chance to sit down and talk with her, it was about her love for history and African American culture. And we became fast friends. And the article that I wrote says it all. So I don't want to dominate this discussion. I want to hear from some of these other people who are part of her life. Because one of the things for me as a newcomer from another community was that I could often name drop by saying, I'm in Victoria. And that would get me in the door. And that would get people warmed up to me immediately, before they even knew who I was and what was important to me. It was a quick way of getting people to know who you were and the things that you were interested in, and that you were good people. Because if Victoria wasn't that fond of me, I don't think there was anybody that I knew that she was not that fond of, but it did take her a while to warm up to you. She would, want to get to know. She was friendly. If you were a young person, she was your fast friend. I would be places with her, and she would stop the conversation that we were having and start talking to that young person, which was a wonderful thing. She was ageless and timeless in that way. So, first question is, and we'll go in this order, when was the first time that you met Victoria? And I know for Miss Casey, it would be easy because they were family members. I mean, what's the first memory, I guess you could say, that you had of Victoria?
Okay. My early memories of Victoria was at Jackson High School. That was the segregated school for the blacks. She was in high school, and I was like first, second, third grade. And she let me know that she was my first cousin. I probably already knew that, but I lived in Silva, she lived in Cullowhee. We're really close, but we didn't visit each other that often. When we did visit, though, I have to tell you this, because when we did visit, we went to that playroom. And it was amazing. I do not know what part of that playroom belonged to Victoria, but she and her sisters and brothers had created downtown Silva with cardboard boxes. They had all of the buildings, the names like C.J. Harris and all those names that you see on the Civil Supply, all of those on both sides. And they were just tables put together. They had people that they had made out of cardboard boxes and cars and whatever. But I just remember just being amazed. It was like going to an amusement park or something, because all of these things you were familiar with, but not in the way that they had presented. They were so artistic, my first cousins. And that she used that with my sister, Audrey, was 2 years younger. So when she came to school, she and all of her friends, of course, like paper dolls. So Victoria and her sister Floretta would make paper dolls out of cardboard boxes. They would be about this high, a little girl with black hair, all curly or plaits. They looked like us. And they had little dresses and little outfits to go with them. And they would make these and bring them to school and give them to the little ones. Now remember, they were in high school. But that was always special when you received your paper dolls from Victoria, Lorinda, and Floretta. Those were the ones that were in high school when I was in elementary school. So those are my early memories of Victoria.
Next. And if you would introduce yourselves as you speak. And you know what, let me say this. We have a chair left. And I just remembered something that I forgot. So I'm going to ask if Bishop Adam West would join us for our panel. This is what's really good about not having a printed program. When you leave something out, you can improvise. And when you have a spot, you can fill it. Thank you.
My name is Stone Moore, and I met Victoria in 2002 when I moved to Western North Carolina. And I think the way that I met Victoria is because when my kids went to high school at Smoky Mountain High, they met Tina and Marcus and all the other kids. And my house kind of became the hangout place for all the kids. And Victoria, I met her, been coming to collect her daughter. And with her coming to collect her and bringing her over and everything, we got to know each other that way. And then we began to go to church together because I got invited to church because I didn't have a church home at that time. And I think first Marcus invited me to church, which is Bishop West's son. And then Victoria invited me, and then I was going to church together. And that was the way that we became friends. But Victoria was a very, she was kind of quiet, but she was one of these people that was very inquisitive, and she was listening and thinking all the time. So when you were talking to Victoria, when things were going on around Victoria, she was watching everything, and she had a sense of humor. She had kind of this dry sense of humor, but you would get it. You would be talking or whatever. She'd be talking to somebody, and she would say something that was really funny, and you really, you didn't look at her and see her as someone that had a real sense of humor, but she really did. And she was this kind of person. She kind of worked her way into people's life, and she was, if you got to know Victoria, you couldn't help but like Victoria. She was that kind of person that could just fit in with almost anybody. She wasn't a person where you could, sometimes you meet people and you know that person you just don't like, or you can't make friends with that person, or that you would never be friends. But she wasn't that kind of person. She was that kind of person that come into your life and you know that she was somebody special.
My name is Annette Clapsaddle, and I'm glad I have some other former teachers here who can correct the dates for me of when I met. I always refer to her as Ms. McDonald. I went to Smoky Mountain Elementary School all the way through 8th grade, and she was a teacher there and a coach there. And the first way that I encountered her was probably through my brother, who's 3 years older than me and Creighton's age. And so I had the down low on Ms. McDonald before I got to her, which is always good to have. So I knew to expect that you would toe the line in her class, that there was no messing around or an object would be thrown at you.
That she would thump you.
Or thump you, yes, yeah. But I also knew that I would love her, because if my brother loved her, then I knew I would love her too. So I just remember her look, whether it was on the basketball court or in her room. There are people that have been taller than me that can give me the downward look, and that's easy. But when you're 5 feet tall, and I've been this height since I was in her classroom, somehow she could still give me that look, but upward. And I don't know how anybody does that, but she could do it.
We call it throwing shade.
Okay, she could throw shade, but in a loving way, yeah. But I loved having her as a social studies teacher. I remember a project that stands out to me. I'm not sure why, out of everything we did, but I remember we were researching countries around the world, and specifically in Africa. And I remember it wasn't a superficial kind of task for her. What she expected of us was not do a little bit of research, put your name on it, and turn it in. And I remember working so hard on that project and learning everything there was to know about the country we were assigned. And we would think that we were done, and she would come back and she would say, well, what's their chief export? I don't know. Go find that now. It was always digging a layer deeper. And I really appreciated that about Ms. McDonald, because it reminded us that, we are from a small part in this world, but there's a much larger world out there, and we should strive to learn every layer of it that we can. And I got that out of her social studies class. And on the basketball court, where I really grew to love Ms. McDonald, she was one of the toughest coaches that I have ever had in my life. And so I started playing for her my 7th grade year. And I was a post player once again because of my height. And I can remember her at practice posting up on me, like, and just moving me out of the lane. And she would, when she got tired of playing in the post, she'd just beat on me. Just until I was tough enough to play for her. And I had so much respect for her as a coach, as a teacher, and when I played at Smoky Mountain High School, she would come to games and sit in the corner of the gym, just quiet, as far as I know, quiet, watching the game as often as she could. And she supported her players and her students throughout our lives. You know, it wasn't just a short-term experience. So that's how I came to know her.
My name is Amy Ammons Garza.
Can you hear in the back? You might have to project.
Okay.
Can we get some? Oh, we can speak into it. Oh.
My name. Can you hear me now?
I'll turn you up a little bit harder.
I'm turning it up.
She's working.
There you go. My name is Amy Ammons Garza, and I'm one of the co-founders of Catch a Spirit of Appalachia. And my sister and I are storytellers, and we went into all the schools in Jackson County when we first started back 30 years ago. And we met Victoria during that time, but I really didn't get to know her until the Arts Council decided to do the book that she had written on the Appalachian, the African Americans of Jackson County. And she decided, and they decided that Catch a Spirit would publish it. So I do the layout of all the books that we publish. And she came to sit down right next to me while I was putting the book together. And I would put the picture on the page, and she'd tell me everything that she wanted everybody to know about that picture. And she knew everything about every picture in that book. She was just so full of information about her heritage and loved everyone that was in those pictures too. And later on, when we decided to do Stories of Mountain Folk on the radio, I asked Victoria if she would do the Black Roots of Appalachia, which would be one time a month. She would interview someone. She looked at me like she thought I was crazy. She said, "I can't use this machine. I don't know how to turn it on. I don't know how to turn it off. How do I get it off of the recorder?" And I said, "Well, let's pretend that I'm recording you, and then you can see how to do it." And so we went through this whole thing of how to use the recorder. And then she said, "But I don't want to do it."
She wanted to talk to people, but she didn't want to do that part.
No, she didn't want to do. Then I said, "Well, we need to have someone who knows everyone to talk to, the ones that you know that we should interview, that we want to keep their voice forever." And she said, "Okay, let me have that thing." And down the road she went. And then that very same day she came back, she said, "Here." She threw it at me. She said, "I did it, and I talked to it. The whole time I talked to it." She said, "I don't know what I'm doing, but here you go." And we did a lot of editing on that first one. A lot of editing. But she was hilarious because she didn't want to do it, yet she did, and she did a wonderful job. 2 years she did this. And she recorded just about everyone she could think of. And thank God she did.
I don't think I need this.
I think it'll help with the audio.
Will it? Okay. What did you call me that?
On the mic, hot mic.
I'm Bishop Adam West from God's Holy Tabernacle. And first I want to thank, I call her Tina. Can you hear me?
You gotta speak right into the top.
Hello? All right. I want to thank Faustine Wilson for inviting me. She called me almost 2 months ago and asked me when I come, but I didn't know this is what I was going to be doing. But I'm here. Victoria. I knew of Victoria, but I didn't really know Victoria until she came to church one Sunday. And she came, and after church, she would come to me and talk. And then we would go park and go on about our business. And next Sunday, she came back. To make a long story short, that she's going to come back. And I realized what was going on in her life. And I said, Victoria, I said, we need to sit down and talk. Why? I said, we just need to talk. Well, what are you going to talk about? And I said, well, we need to talk about the Lord. Well, you tell me now. I said, no, we don't do it like this. And it was Victoria and I, we had some good times, but the situation, I told the Lord, I said, Lord, is she going to be one of my members? Because it seemed like everything that I would say, she would have a question. You know, why do I have to do it that way? I said, well, because the scripture says that. Well, show me. Okay. But long story short, she became, I told her one day, and I said, Victoria, I said, you have a calling on your life. No, I don't. I'm not going to preach. I'm not going to do that. And I said, Victoria, if the Lord is calling you to preach, you're going to preach. I'm not preaching. And then one day, one Sunday, she started walking the aisle. And she began to preach and didn't know she was preaching. And we started laughing because she didn't know what she was doing. So after that, everybody, after she got through, and she started clapping, and we started clapping for her, and then we had testimony service. And she said, I don't know what I was doing out there, out there, And I was telling her what was going on. Are you sure? And this went on until I ordained her. And she became a minister. And I thank God for her because there was nothing that I could not ask her to do. We turn our heat on Saturdays, so I called her one day and I said, Victoria, I said, will you mind turning the heat on? Oh, I don't mind. I'm here over here. It ain't no sense in you coming across from that, are you? I said, okay. And I have to say that she worked in the church, and she became a minister of God, not one of my ministers, but she became a minister of God. And I thank God for her, and I thank God for her daughter, who is a member of God's Holy Tabernacle. But to say this, that you had to know Victoria who she was, because she was blunt, and she would tell you what was on her mind, and she would give you a piece of her mind. That was Victoria. And I want to thank God today that she was one of my ministers. I can say that I can't say anything else, because the work that I saw her do here in Jackson County, and the work that I see that is still going on, and the legacy that she had left behind. We know that she's in a better place, but there's not a Sunday, goes by that you can't help but think about her, because she brought joy to the church. She was just that type of person. And we have to, nobody's perfect, but we have to understand one another to know who they are. And this day I can say that I become one person who really knew who Victoria was. And I have some art of her. She drew the church, she gave it to me. And then one day, at the pastor's anniversary, and she came and she gave me this picture. And she said, "Now don't open it till you get home." But I had opened it anyway. And it was a picture of myself that she had drew with my robe on. So I have memories that I can say that she was a woman of God.
Wow. Well, I want to say something really quickly before I pass the mic around. Again, we shared some of our other favorite stories of Victoria, but it would be not appropriate for me to say that she made my faith grow deeper. And I started to, I can't remember someone, maybe around her funeral, time of her funeral or at the wake, said, what was Victoria to you? And I just have to say, sometimes I hang around with her so much that people would mistake me for her daughter. I said, no, she has a daughter. And her daughter is Faustine. But I had to say, Victoria is my spiritual mentor. And that was like the best title that I could come up with. Because it wasn't just for me to say, well, we're involved in history projects at Western and, book readings and different things like that. It was deeper than that. And I think that's, there are different levels of getting to know her. And, basically I felt so blessed that, Tina would allow me to spend all this time with her mom, because I could come rolling in, I'm telling a secret here quickly, rolling in to Jackson County at midnight, and sometimes it was like at the last minute, and I'd call her and say, is it okay if I come by, can I spend the night? After a while, she would say, okay, I'll just leave the door unlocked. And I could drive up and find my little spot on the couch, and then wake up in the morning, and you would hear her singing through the house. She would get up and she would be singing. You heard. That would be what you woke up to. Now, you would not wake up to bacon and eggs and grits and hoe cakes. No, because she did not cook. But you wake up to music, and then she'd have coffee, and she'd put like a little bit of nutmeg in her coffee, and sit and talk. She'd be writing in her office. And we would watch Matlock, or we'd watch In the Heat of the Night, some of those, 1980s, TV shows. And, sometimes we'd have to be someplace, but we just have to watch to see what was the ending to this episode. And she was, and just even remembering these stories, she was so much fun to be with. I mean, she was so much fun to be with. She was always learning something. She didn't know something about something, she would ask questions. And I know we don't have a lot of time, but when we do this again, I want Faustine to tell the story about why she did wear dreadlocks. It wasn't a fashion statement. It was actually directly related to something that happened. Maybe she might want to share that when she gets up or whatever. But we'll just take another round real quickly, and if you want to share just either another story, or we'll round it up and say, you know, what do you think her legacy is to us? And we'll start and work it back around. We're going to start with you, Amy.
Well, I suppose one of the good stories that you heard her sing, Sweet Little Jesus Boy. I was doing a play at Calvary Baptist Church, and it was called Trail of Light. I don't know if anybody had seen that play, but at the end of the play, we wanted to have a song with Baby Jesus. And I asked her if she would do that for us, and she did, and it brought the house down. I mean, I guess the spirit. Yeah, the spirit, and not only that, in your own heart, it touched you. And I'll never forget it. It was just the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard. And so we kept asking her to sing it. And she got tired of singing it. And we'd have our Christmas gathering with our board and ask her to sing. And she sang bass with all of the other singers that we had some great singers in our group. We still do. And every Christmas we gather and we sing Christmas carols at our dinner, and she was part of that, and I was able to get more of her songs that way. But loving lady she was. She loved every one of us on the board. And I guess those are some of the personal feelings and emotions that I remember about her. But I think her legacy was her written works, because they'll go on forever. And she was the very first African American to publish about her people in Western North Carolina. It was the very first book, The African Americans of Jackson County. And then she went on to publish 2 other books. And that, to me, will always go on. It put our culture where it ought to be. We're a multicultural area. And that is her legacy.
I have a little bit harder time remembering very specific instances, since most of my time spent with her was middle school age. I take from her, though, a general spirit. She used to call me big girl. That's okay when you're an athlete, when they call you big girl. It's not okay otherwise. But I almost can hear her voice just calling me big girl in terms of pushing me farther and farther and harder, so that I knew how far I could go, whether it's athletically or academically. And it's kind of around that topic when I think about her legacy, because she's one of these people that it seems like every other day there's another facet to who she is that you learn about. And I knew she was a great teacher. I knew she was a great coach. I knew she was a great mother. And then I would find out she was an artist. And then I would find out she was an author. And then I would find out she was a political leader. And I think when we can have people like that in our community who show us the depths of our potential over and over again. I never remember her complaining about anything except maybe that we weren't working hard enough. You know, like anything that she personally needed, I don't remember a complaint. And to have people in our lives who we can witness pushing themselves to be better human beings. You know, she's a religious leader too. That's just things that we learn about her over the years. I think that's an incredible legacy, to know that people will continue to learn about what an incredible person you are. I am, and yeah, I guess I should share that too, because I throw things at students too now. It's really effective. But yeah, I have a couple of my other teachers here, both wonderful teachers. And I had a high school teacher who shared a poem with us that said that we are bits and pieces of the people we meet. And I am, as a teacher especially, so grateful for the teachers I had at Smoky Mountain Elementary, Ms. McDonald being one of them. And I definitely, like, I'm still working on that stare she could give you. But I'm going to take that with me as well, because she got the best out of people. And I am a teacher because of teachers like her. I don't know why I got this lucky. I had incredible teachers in elementary school, all the way through my education, especially in English and social studies. And I definitely take a piece of them with me back into the classroom. So hopefully at least a little piece of her will stay in the classroom. Even if it's just throwing a marker that gets somebody's attention.
There is so many things about Victoria that I can think of, and as Marie said, Victoria was not a person that cooked. But Victoria used to come to my house every Sunday for dinner, and she would call me through the week and say, "You're a cook," and say, "So what are you having?" And I would tell her, and she said, "It doesn't matter, I'm kind of dishy anyway." And so I used to see her come up on my deck all the time, and it wasn't a problem. I loved her to death, and I look out sometime now, and it just seems like I should see her walking up on my deck, and it's just so hard for me sometimes when I think about her. We used to study the Bible together, and we went on a lot of trips together. We were kind of partners in crime. But she was, I was very close to her, and I really loved her. And I know that, there were so many things about her, but she was just a wonderful person. And we used to talk about our kids, and kids used to be mad at us about everything and whatever, but we went on anyway, and kids would be jealous because we were close friends, because they felt we were spending more time with Victoria, or if Tina thought Victoria was spending more time with me than we were with them, and but you go through it, and I love her daughter, and I love my kids, and she, her daughter is like a child of mine as well. And we just went through it. We would talk about it and laugh about it and whatever and get through it. But her legacy, I guess, to other people will be historian, teacher, author, minister. But to me, her legacy will always be, to me, my friend.
Stop for a moment and say, would you like to sing something for us real quick?
When Victoria's sister passed away, she asked me to sing Precious Lord for her. And after that, she said to me one day, she said, "And when I pass, I want you to sing that for me." But I never thought that I would be singing that for her. And anyway, in no ways as soon as it happened, but I ended up having to sing that for her. I did sing it for her, like she said. But it was kind of hard then, and it's kind of hard now because you know when people say that, you don't expect to be doing that, you know. But I'll sing. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn through the night and through the years. Lead me on through the night. Take my hand, precious Lord, and lead me on when my way grows drear. Precious Lord, linger near when my life is almost gone. Hear my cry, hear my call. Hold my hand, lest I fall. Take my hand, precious Lord, and lead me home when the darkness appears and the night draws near and the day is past and gone. At the river I stand, got my feet, oh my hand, take my hand, precious Lord, and lead me home.
In the 1970s, I found out how special a woman Victoria is or was. During that time, she was a full-time student at Western Carolina University. She worked full-time for what was then Contel, it's now Verizon. She was a caregiver for her mother, and she had Creighton. And I remember that she had worked it out with Mom when she had to be at work late, or if she had to be at Western late. All she would do was say, she would call Mom and say, pick up my mom for me, my mom in Creighton. And we were more than happy to help her out because we knew exactly where she was. She was at work or she was at Western. So that's when I knew what a special lady she was. She was able to handle all of those things. Her mother was getting sick and sicker. But she made sure her mother was taken care of. And in the 1980s is when she published what I call her first book. It was, had a binder on it. It was yellow. And it was about Bill and Amanda Casey and their family. Bill and Amanda Casey are my great-grandparents. So it would be her great-grandparents. She had been researching our family for many, many years, and she decided to put it down on paper for us. And I remember at that reunion when she distributed those booklets, you didn't hear anything. Everybody was reading, and they was trying to get to the place where they were born because their name was in there. And we still have those books. And our reunion started in 1970. So she had summaries of every one of the reunions, where we had traveled to, the things that we had done. It was just, it's great. And it was just this year that we started to update those. We had to go through the 90s and into 2000 and so on to catch up. And it took all of us to remember some of those things. So we're working on updating that book. When I say reunions, Victoria was definitely the person that provided the fun. She is very competitive, and we always had, since 1980, we've always had a softball game. My dad had 8 brothers and 1 sister, so they had a baseball team, 9 boys. And they loved to play softball and baseball, so we would play a softball game. But we had to make sure that Victoria was on one team and my cousin Anthony was on the other. They were so competitive, we knew before the game was over, there would be an argument. And that is exactly what happened. And when one of them was not there, it was not near as fun as those times we spent watching ball games. Some of them at Watson Park is where we played when we were here in Jackson County. In 1983, Victoria was going to host the reunion here in Silver. And we always have a family history test. And we give a prize to the person that makes the highest score. So I was in charge of that prize. And we had a picture of our great-grandmother, Amanda. And I was in the cross-stitch stand. So I wanted to do a cross-stitch of that picture. But I had to have a pattern. So who did I go to? Vic. I went to Vic. And I said, Victoria, here's the idea I got. She said, I don't know anything about cross-stitch. I said, you don't have to. All you have to do is take a sheet of brown paper and draw our great-grandmother, Amanda. Color it in. And then I'll tell you what to do with each one of those little squares. She made that pattern for me. I cross-stitched it, and it was beautiful. The picture was black and white that she copied it from, but then it came alive with the colors that Victoria chose to use. So she was always helpful. You know, she would say, I don't know if I can do that or not, but then she would do it. That was in 1983. Well, here comes 2004, and my sister is having the reunion the very first time in Myrtle Beach. And we always have a keynote speaker at our reunion banquet. And Audrey wanted our great-grandmother Amanda to be that keynote speaker. So she went to Victoria and said, how can I make this happen? So Victoria wrote the speech. She wrote the script. And in the script, Audrey wanted her to introduce her children, say something about them, her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren, which is our generation. And Victoria wrote that. Audrey was able to find somebody in Myrtle Beach, an actress, to read it with her granny voice. And Audrey collected pictures of everybody named in that script and put it on video. And that was the best keynote speaker we've ever had in our family. When our great-grandmother Amanda spoke to us using Victoria's words. That's how creative she was. So those are the things that I saw that you didn't see. And when I think of her legacy, for our family, it is the books. It's the words. That first book, especially, that she did just for us and that we are adding to as we go along. And I remember at the reunion in 2014, one of our, I think he's maybe first cousin, thrice removed, I think. He had not been to the reunion since he was a child. And we were in D.C. And he came and he had his 3 teenage boys with him. And he wanted them to know the family, so he started asking questions. My first cousin from Kalamazoo, Michigan, went back to her hotel room and got her tote bag. And in that tote bag, she had all of the programs from our reunion, Shirley, this was Shirley, and she had all of Victoria's books. And she pulled out that yellow one, and she said, start right here. Start right here. And Victoria was there when she and Tina and Ronnie finally arrived that day, that he was introduced to Victoria. And he had the best time learning about his history, and it was just from Victoria's books. So that will be her legacy. When they're having Casey reunions 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, they'll know about Mary Sue Casey because of Victoria. They'll know about my first cousin once removed, Tina, and all of those, my brother back there and my mother. They'll know all about us because of Victoria. So, thank you, Victoria. You did it to death, girl.
Please, spontaneous. We're going to have some remarks from Faustine, but is there anyone else who would like to share really quickly? Anyone else? Yes, you do. For the sake of the book.
Victoria, I've heard, Victoria's a great historian. She's a great person. Victoria was a great athlete. I associate myself with Victoria athletically. Victoria's the first person that I ever seen to dribble a basketball behind their back. It was at Jackson High School. And the girls would practice basketball one day, and the men would practice basketball the next day. And I passed the gym one day. She was in there practicing. She was left-handed. She was awesome athlete. She really was. If she was around today, she'd be in a UConn basketball league. They just won 100 games. UConn. She's the Tar Heels or Notre Dame. But she was dribbling the ball behind her back. She was left-handed. She'd go to her right. She'd switch the ball behind her back. Back to her legs, back to her left. And I'm like, what's she doing? And so I stepped my hand through. I said, Victor, what are you doing? She said, I'm dribbling the ball behind my back. But I couldn't sit there and watch her practice. She rode the bus home with me in the afternoon. And that's before Bob Cousy was my favorite basketball player. And that's before I even saw him ever dribble behind the back. Victoria was dribbling behind the back. And I said, well, why do you dribble behind? Why do you do that? She said, so I could get the advantage. She was only 5 feet tall. The other girl was taller than she was. So she needed an advantage, and the advantage was to go behind her back, from her weak side to her left side. And she was a great athlete, very competitive against Franklin High School and Murray High School and Reynolds High School, Stevens League High School. She played her best game. But that was part of her legacy. With obstacles, she turned into resources. Lemons, she turned into lemonade.
And she was so curious about things that she would know what lemonade was. She knew who Beyonce was. She would know what was going on in the news and among young people. It kind of makes me realize some of these other, to tie it all together. She actually challenged what people would expect of a person from Western North Carolina who really, I mean, she traveled, but who never really left. I mean, she lived here. She didn't live anyplace else. But even in the photograph, that's one of the most popular ones of her, people thought she was from another country sometimes. And that deep voice is like, for a woman in her 70s to rock kente cloth and a hat cocked to the side and stuff, it's like, who is that? You know, she would challenge what a woman was expected to do. And did it in such, you know, a natural way. She was being her own person. And I think that's something else that is worth saying. And she inspired that in people too, to ask questions. So I'm going to go ahead and hand off to Faustine, better known as Tina, and let her share some remarks. Because as you can see, as the hour draws near, we're coming to the end of the program. We're going to end with a couple of remarks and acknowledgments, and then there's music, and then there's more prayer, and then there's going to be food. So hang in there with us as we continue to celebrate her life and legacy.
I'm Victoria's daughter. You can probably hear it in my voice. I've got a deeper voice, sort of like hers. I had somebody tell me one day, they were speaking and she was already passed. They turned around a fair and they would go, I thought you were your mom. I was like, what? She was like, just one word you said. Just one. She was like, I just thought for a second. I was like, no, far from it. Can never be anything close to her. She's one amazing woman. She's one woman that I not only looked up to, but she was everything that I wanted to be. It was those, you know, people say those are big shoes to fill. She always told me to fill my own, do my own thing. I am my own person. And I was. And I am. But I always looked at her shoes and said, yeah, I want that. You know? Look at something, I want that. I want that accomplishment. I want to be able to say that I did that. And I didn't, I filled my own shoes and I know why. But my mom was amazing, and I'll call her mother. Everybody, I'll get in trouble. Like, why are you calling your mom mother? She's my mother. I was like, it's out of respect. I was like, I don't know where you came from, or where I came from. Give everybody, yes ma'am, no ma'am, no sir, yes sir. You gave them the pronunciation. It was my mother. I was like, that's my mother, that's my father. You know, and that was what it was. Mom, and it's so funny. Marie says mom's dreadlocks. Yeah, mom's dreadlocks were originally created because of one thing, because of her teaching. Because of actually, I think it was your group that did it. No, so serious. I think it's true that you went through like 90s, right?
Yeah.
90s, yeah. And I was gonna say there was a thing. If you have your local schools, and if you know anything about the school system, that you have your rankings of your schools. They did it in English. social studies, the rankings throughout their state, test scores. So they get those back, and that tells you what school's the best, who's teaching the best, supposedly, and this and that. Well, they had their meeting, and of course, I was there, and I was a part, sitting in the back, chilling like I wasn't there, because I wasn't supposed to be there, after school. And they made a bet on her talking, and she's like, we beat Fairview, because Fairview was always on top in Jackson County. We beat Fairview, because Smoky Mountain was go first or second. We beat Fairview more first. They were like, what? I'll grow dreadlocks. They looked around, and it gave all the teachers an incentive, even to teach a little harder. You always get those incentives. That was their incentive that year, was to make Miss McDonald get dreadlocks. They were going to want to see her with dreadlocks, because the only thing she's ever had was an afro or Jericho. That was it. That's all they ever saw. They wanted to see her with dreadlocks. So that was the goal. I remember her coming home and was like, well, you doing this? And what am I doing? I didn't do it here. I didn't, She's like, well, figure out how to do dreadlocks, because they won. They beat Fairview. They beat in Jackson County. Smoky Mountain was #1. And she just looked at me. I was like, all right. I was like, I guess I got to figure out how to do this. She didn't want, to go to a hair salon and get somebody to do it. She wanted me to do it. I'm like, no, I'm 12. How am I seriously? All right, cool. So I figured out how to do dreadlocks. And I did her dreadlocks for years. And then she actually cut up the picture that you'll normally see her with her. That's actually after they've been cut. They used to wear them down her back. And I cut them and redid them. And she wanted them redone. And literally she cut them down to an afro again and we redid them over the years. And she never stopped doing her dreadlocks because of that contest. That is the reason. It wasn't because it was a hairstyle that, was going around in the African American period. Or somebody's cool hairstyle had to be done, or you saw it somewhere else. It had to happen. It's because the kids won. Kids won, the school won. So she made a bet. She paid her tithes, and she loved it that way. And she loved it. She would not change it for anything. And I remember she was like, I always thought. I said, yes, ma'am. Smoky Mountain was #1. She goes, yes, that's it. She didn't care. And that's the reason that she had dreadlocks. I'm glad that everybody's here. I just thank you for celebrating her life and who she was. There's so many different people here, family and community, that I know and love. And thank you here so much. And like I said, there's so many to point. And when Marie asked me, she's like, well, we got this and that. And I was like, all right. I was like, I can do it. We can do this. And I said, I've got one thing. She's like, we need people on the panel. And I immediately started thinking of people for the panel. And all these people stood out for different. She's like, well, we need something from every part of what she did. I said, every part? I said, you talking about every part of what she did? Or are you actually listening to yourself and just saying it? Not trying to be, being smart, but it's the actuality of it. Because if you look at the list, it's like 7 things. It's like, all right, we're going to do every part. And so, there's everything: family, friend, teacher, a colleague, ends up being in the reality of it, and student, and other colleagues and minister. So we were able to get everybody here, and it was amazing. And then her other teachers, the colleagues that she actually taught with, are actually sitting over there. And Miss Bruce taught me as well. And the fun bad thing is, my mom taught me. I was a long 6th and 7th grade year. When she originally went through, you had paddling in school. Okay? So you had a paddle. She had a paddle on her desk. Wood paddle. It had names on it. I was like, no. There's no way. really paddled all these people. She goes, Betsy. I was like, yes, ma'am. Well, I lost that bet 6th grade year. I wasn't too smart off in her class. She said, stay. I was Jim. I said, yes, ma'am. I got paddled and I signed that paddle. And as I was crying, from that, I was like, I'll never forget signing that paddle as I was crying. And then trying not to cry because if you ever heard, oh, I'll give you something to cry about. And my mom used to say that. And, I mean, you wouldn't even be doing it. Oh, I'll give you something to cry about. I'll give you something to cry about. Yes, ma'am. All right, look it up. You better be real, you know. And so that was my mom. She was so many people and so many different things. And to so many, and it depends on who you talk to what she was. You know, she could have just been, and it's so funny, later in her life, some of the kids, if they were, you know, these kids' age, they would just think that Miss McDonald's awesome substitute teacher. They didn't even know that she was a real teacher. Not saying that substitutes aren't real teachers, but they didn't know that she actually taught for 30 years. They just thought she was a awesome substitute teacher. Didn't mess with Miss McDonald, you knew if you were in her class. Didn't mess, and you actually did work. That's all they knew, but that's all they knew. Was a substitute teacher. And that her daughter played, you know, or these things. That's the only thing they knew. They didn't know any other aspects of her. But it depends on who you talk to and where you're seeing. And it's so funny, every time I go somewhere, I think, oh, I know it's going to be that. I'll meet somebody new. And tells me a new story. And I think I know what people are going to say. Never. They always surprise me. It doesn't matter who it is. And the behind the back thing, never heard that story. Never heard half the stories that are around here. And we've talked about my mother before with everybody, you know, that has spoken. But every time it's different. I'm really blessed for all of you to be here, and I'm going to give it back to Marie and everybody that came.
Let's stand and give God. Thank you, Faustine Wilson. Yay! All right. Well, that was to stretch your legs for a minute because we do have one other bit of business, so you can sit right down for us 1 second. And all of you can, yes, see, brethren. There are many people to thank, and what I'm going to do, quite honestly, is create a program that lists all of the participants. So if you haven't signed the sign-in sheet, please do that. Let's pass it around. I know we have some people who just came in. We have Ann Woodford, who represents One Dozen Who Cared. We have Pam Meister. And I want to mention those two as I make my comments before we close. Because as we talk about legacy, it just so happens that there's so many of us who are really wanting to create that continuation of this kind of work, sometimes even going parallel to one another. And there's a wonderful project that's being called When All God's Children. It's called All God's Children. And we're going to have this information available to you because there's an exhibition at Western, there are going to be some musical events. So at some point, you know, we're going to sit together and consolidate some of this because we have been working in and around the community to take this up and to champion the cause of what this area is really all about. In his absence, I also want to say that Chris Aluka-Berry, who is my collaborator on a photography project, could not be here today. Please take a look at the photographs on display as you leave the rotunda. There's a beautiful montage of Tina with her great-great-grandmother at the bottom of the stairs, that Amanda that we mentioned earlier. So you'll be hearing more about that because that is a direct legacy of the work that Victoria did. And then I think there was one more thing I needed to mention. Well, as I've said before, and my corporate sponsor is the Highlander Center. I received, along with Chris and Luca Berry, a grant from the Highlander Center, and it's called the We Shall Overcome Fund. This is a grant that is money from the proceeds, or the residual rights of the song. When we talk about the diversity of this region, the Highlander Center in Tennessee was the training ground for the civil rights movement. Just over across the way in Newmarket, Tennessee. Don't believe the hype. Rosa Parks did not sit down because she was tired. She was trained in order to do that nonviolent action. Martin Luther King and all of the principal participants in the civil rights movement were at the Highlander Center. The song We Shall Overcome came from the labor movement and evolved into the anthem of the civil rights movement that we hear in South Africa, that we hear all over the country, all over the world, being sung in many different languages. So there's so much more to share. If you have the time, like I said before, we have books on display. We have items from the Appalachian Artist Project. And, you know, you've given us your contact information, but please come up and just give us just a few words that you might want to share about what you've heard today. Just some comments. We're calling this the memory table here. And I want to be able to, like I said, continue this conversation and think about the ways that we might be able to take this further, because next year would have been Victoria's 75th birthday. Tomorrow is her birthday. That's why we chose this weekend. And she was also honored in the North Carolina Heritage Calendar that recognizes African Americans across the state. So there's so many different ways that we can go further and be able to acknowledge this history and plant these seeds in a very troubled time, in a very conflicted time in our nation. So we're going to have We Shall Overcome as our anthem to take us out. But before we leave, I just want to bring another spiritual force with us before we go our separate ways. And in our presence, we have Reverend Herbert Grant, who is the leader of the congregation at Mount Zion AME Zion Church, which is her ancestral family church in Colby. So would you give us a prayer, Reverend Grant? And then, like I said, we can stand up and we'll be able to join in with this wonderful clip that I have. Oh, he likes the pony.
Let us pray. Gracious God, our Heavenly Father, we pause now to give you thanks. We thank you for this day. We thank you for the privilege that you have afforded us to be able to rise up off our sleeping couches and to be able to dawn to this beautiful day. Now, Lord, as we have come to celebrate one who made history here in Silver and Colorway, we thank you for the life. We thank you for her contributions. We thank you for her legacy. We thank you, O gracious God, for all the many acts of kindness that she showed towards humankind. But now, Lord, we also thank you for the greatest gift that could ever have come into her life, and that is the gift of being redeemed and washed in the blood of the Lamb. And so we are reminded as we come to the close of this portion that recognizes the life and legacy of Sister Victoria McDonald. We ask now that you would remind each of us that your words are true, that blessed are they who die in the Lord, for they do rest from their labors. but their works continues to follow them. We recognize that this day, that even though she now rests on the other side of the Jordan, her works continue on here in silver and colorway and beyond. And so we pray for those of us who are left on this side that we will pick up the mantle and that we will run as swiftly as we can, so that when we come to the end of the road, we'll be able to hear you say, well done, as you did to Sister Victoria. Now, Lord, we ask your blessing upon us as we go forth from this place. In the name of Jesus the Christ we pray. Amen.
Amen.